has one of the most enviable car collections in the world. It also includes some of the wildest cars ever made. Since leaving The Tonight Show, the man who was called the hardest working man in show business has been hard at work giving us glimpses of his massive car collection, which ranges from the historic to the hysterical. This isn't your usual cast of exotics. These classics and customs make up the wildest car collection around. Let's take a look at the craziest things parked in Jay Leno's garage. From building Chevrolet-powered Can-Am race cars to becoming a top-tier Formula One team, McLaren has made its mark in the racing world. In 1992, designer Gordon Murray convinced team principal Ron Dennis to build a car for the road that celebrated McLaren's Formula One wins called, what else? The F1. It had a lot of notable supercar features: funky doors, a powerful, normally aspirated BMW engine, a unique central driver's position. But what everyone really remembers about McLaren F1 is that top speed. At a time when most supercars were just cracking the 200-mile-per-hour barrier, the F1 cracked it and left its shards in its wake. UK racer Andy Wallace took one to an average 240.1 miles per hour on a VW test track. To this day, the McLaren is the fastest normally aspirated production car ever made. With only 108 made, Leno was able to snag the first one imported to the United States at the time, valued at around $12 million. Since then, prices for F1s have only gone up, making it the most expensive car in Leno's collection. While he says he has no favorites, he has said that the F1 is just about perfect. When the McLaren F1 set the production speed record, people thought that was fast as a production car would ever go. Those people have never met car builders. Car builders like Christian von Koenigsegg, whose Swedish brand has built cars capable over 300 miles per hour and license plates. It's not the 300-mile-per-hour Jesko that graces Leno's garage, but it's no slowpoke either. Leno's Trevita CCXR is capable of 254 miles per hour, making it the fastest car in Leno's collection. While the McLaren might be rare with only 108 made, it has nothing on the CCXR, which is one of 3. Builder Christian von Koenigsegg actually hand-delivered the car to Leno. It wasn't just the staggering top speed that made the CCXR stand out, or the requisite oddly operated doors, but rather its nod to the environment. The CCXR tried to give all 3 of its owners a little more miles by making it the first supercar to run on E85 ethanol fuel and the first supercar to try and blend performance and green technology. $4.8 million is the price of that kind of exclusivity, and being one of the 3 chosen to fork over that much cash. A car collector like Jay Leno doesn't have to sit on his hands waiting for a Swedish company to make him an eco-friendly supercar, though. There are other company heads that he can call up for some great personal attention, like the folks over at General Motors. The folks at General Motors are exactly who he called when he got the idea to take the jet engine out of a Bell helicopter and build a car around it. The inspiration came from another car in his collection, the Chrysler Turbine car. In the 1960s, manufacturers started to experiment with turbine power. In fact, in 1968, Lotus entered a turbine power car in the Indianapolis 500 that nearly dominated the event, save for a non-engine failure on the car. It never got a second chance because the sanctioning body immediately made the car illegal. Based on Leno's design, GM built a Cadillac around the turbine engine that was fed with biodiesel fuel for his own one-of-a-kind green supercar. The EcoJet isn't the only mad custom featuring an engine from a strange place. The Blastolene Special was the brainchild of Randy Grubb, who took the engine out of a patent tank and put it in a custom-made classic hot rod chassis and body. The result is a massive open-wheel hot rod that's still 1/11th the size of the tank that the engine came from. Leno bought the car, but rather than trailering it to the occasional concourse event, he drives the car around town to local hot rod events. Because it's a driver, Leno has made some adjustments on the car to accommodate road use. The original transmission, donated from a Greyhound bus, was replaced with an Allison transmission, upgraded brakes, and some tweaks on the chassis. The biggest change, however, was handing the Massive Diesel over to Massive Diesel modifiers Gale Banks Engineering, who fuel-injected the engine, and while they were at it, added turbocharging to the equation. That jumped the engine's output to 1,600 horsepower, up from 800 horsepower. Leno was able to pick up the Blastolene for $125,000, but it's estimated to be worth as much as $350,000 today. One of Jay's most recognizable cars is the Stanley Steamer Vanderbilt Cup racer. Before the world settled on using Carl Benz's Leno's internal combustion engine, manufacturers of the fledgling automobile went with a number of alternatives, including what had been proudly powering locomotives for decades already: steam. The Vanderbilt Cup was the first professional American race starting in 1904 in Nassau County, New York. The 30-mile dirt road course attracted the world's best. The Cape May Automobile Club ordered 2 steamers from Stanley to complete in 1906, confident that the car's 60-mile-an-hour top speed would secure them a top finish. An illness of one of the brothers meant that the 2 cars were not ready for the race, which was canceled after a fatal crash. 100 years later, that Vanderbilt Cup car has found its way into Jay Leno's collection with his other steam-powered cars. After an engine failure, Leno took the opportunity to do some upgrading, including adding drum brakes from a Jaguar XK120 and a larger boiler for more power. So he can take it out at night, the old gas-powered lights were replaced with electric ones. Without modifications, the unique car is valued at around $185,000. We're not quite done with the faithful turbine quite yet. Leno has a factory turbine in his Chrysler and a custom turbine in the EcoJet. The only thing that's missing is a turbine stuffed in a motorcycle. Fortunately, Marine Turbine Technologies has things covered. Released, when else, 2000, the Y2K takes second-hand turbine engines that have reached their mandatory rebuild hours and then rebuilds them for motorcycle duty. Just like the Chrysler and the EcoJet, the turbine drives a shaft rather than pushing the vehicles along via jet propulsion. All told, the combination is good for a claimed 320 horsepower. They don't mass-produce the Y2K turbine superbike. Each one is made to order to the specs of their customer. The Donner engine and custom chassis make it the most expensive production motorcycle, starting at $150,000 to $175,000. For that, you get a bike that runs just about anything flammable and is capable of 237 miles per hour. All you have to do is be willing to go 237 miles per hour. It's not all crazy customs and weird power plants in Jay Leno's garage. There is some history in there of the non-crazy variety, though that probably depends a bit on what you think of as crazy. For instance, you might think it's perfectly normal to take your Ferrari to a guy whose name is on the car and give him notes. That's what tractor builder Ferruccio Lamborghini did with his Ferrari, and when Enzo Ferrari told Ferruccio he didn't know anything about building sports cars, the tractor-trailer set out to prove Il Commodore wrong. The crowning achievement of that monumental exercise in spite is the Lamborghini Miura S. The Miura takes the traditional Italian V12 and came up with the novel idea of mounting it sideways behind the driver. This combination of lightweight and a big powerful engine mounted in the middle became the basics of almost every supercar to follow. None of them, though, ended up looking as dead sexy as the Miura. Speaking of dead sexy, Leno has a pair of these rare beasts, a P400 and S, with the S commanding $3.8 million. Fun fact, Lamborghini names their cars after bulls that won their bullfight. If that wasn't clear yet, Leno has a passion for alternative fuel cars. It stands to reason that most popular alternative to liquid fossils would find its way into Leno's garage. While the electric car might have been around since the 19th century, you heard me, 19th, it wasn't until the 21st century that battery technology caught up with the demands of daily drivers. That came courtesy not of Detroit, but Silicon Valley. Tesla revolutionized the electric car with their Roadster and then established the standard for the electric car in the Model S. Now, anyone hoping to compete with Tesla is expected to have a range of at least 200 to 250 miles, and that instant on torque of the electric to turn in seat-sinking acceleration only seen in supercars. Tesla accounts for almost 60% of the electric car sales in the US, mostly off the back of the lower-priced Model 3, but Leno can afford the $100,000 and up market Model S, which Leno has said makes gas obsolete. Enthusiasts can be a tricky bunch. There are some, like those who like American muscle or those who prefer import tuners and JDM cars, that think of their cars as blank slates to build a one-of-a-kind custom fit to their tastes and skill level. Then there are others who view their preferred car as perfect from the showroom, and anything that doesn't return it to factory spec is an abomination, ruining a piece of automotive art and history. This is especially true when it comes to older models. Porsche fans can fall into this group. On one end, the purists who feel that Dr. Ferry's creation is perfection, and then there are those like Rod Emery, who just goes ahead and customizes old Porsches anyway. It should be clear from Leno modifying his turn-of-the-century one-of-two race car so he can drive it. He's in that camp with Emery and has bought one of his Outlaw Speedsters. Each one is unique, but modifications generally include using 912 engines, suspension upgrades, and bodywork to resemble the built-up racers of the 50s and 60s. Price on a custom is hard to pin down, but 356 Speedsters start at around $150,000 to $200,000. Not everything that appears on Jay Leno's garage actually ends up staying in Jay Leno's garage, but having a collection like this and a reputation like his means that he still gets to live some car fantasies that the rest of us can only dream of. Like when he got to take the Tumbler Batmobile out for a spin when the builders brought it by. The Tumbler was a departure from Batmobiles of the past. George Barris's iconic 1966 Batmobile was built on a Ford Futura concept, while the Burton and Schumacher Batmobiles were custom creations that adhered to legendary GM designer Harvey Earl's aesthetic of long and low. Director Christopher Nolan is a bit of a stickler for his own sense of realism, however. That meant that he had a massive military-looking vehicle that had to be capable of doing 100 miles per hour and doing jumps on location. Costing an estimated $1 million to build, it was an instant fan favorite. Leno got an early look at the Bat-Drone buggy from Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. To get a peek at the Tumbler, you don't have to go to Jay Leno's garage. For that, you have to head off to the Warner Brothers studio tour. Those are some of the craziest cars in Jay Leno's collection. What's your favorite? What would be in your garage? Let us know in the comments, and while you're there, make sure to subscribe to The Richest for the latest videos in your inbox.